On a distant, uncharted planet, a small but thriving colony stood in peace. The planet was a paradise for its inhabitants, a sanctuary far from the chaos of intergalactic wars. Here the sun shone brightly over green fields, and rivers sparkled in the sunlight. Tall, dense trees swayed in the gentle breeze, their leaves rustling softly. It was a world where the people could live in harmony with nature, far from the brutal conflicts that raged in the stars above. Alex, a once renowned warrior from Earth, now called this place home. After the war, after the battles and the endless days of fighting, he had chosen to leave behind the life of a soldier. He was tired of the bloodshed and the pain. When the opportunity came to settle on this peaceful planet, he took it, hoping to find a life of quiet solitude. He had built a small house on the outskirts of the colony, surrounded by the lush wilderness. There he found something he had never expected: peace. The people of the colony accepted Alex as one of their own, though he was different. His skin was lighter, his eyes a deep shade of blue, so different from the people of this world. But they didn't mind. They saw past his appearance, knowing that he was a man of honor, a warrior who had fought to protect those he loved. And in this peaceful place they welcomed him without hesitation. Alex had never imagined that he would find happiness on a world like this. He had come here to escape his past, but he had found much more. Among the people of the colony, he met Lyra, the daughter of the colony's leader. She was a beautiful alien woman, with long silver hair that shone like moonlight and eyes that seemed to hold the mysteries of the universe. She had a soft, natural beauty that made her stand out, even in a world full of strange and wonderful beings. The two had grown close, their bond growing stronger each day. Despite their differences, they found comfort in each other, a connection that seemed to transcend all boundaries. Lyra, however, was never fully at ease. She had always known that their peaceful existence wouldn't last forever. Deep down, she had feared the day that someone would come to destroy the life they had built here. And today, her fears were coming true. Alex was outside, working on his garden, when he heard her calling his name. There was urgency in her voice, a tone he hadn't heard before. Dropping his tools, he rushed to the house. "Alex," Lyra called, her voice trembling. She was standing by the window, staring out into the distance, her hand gripping the frame tightly. "What's wrong?" Alex asked, rushing to her side. He looked out the window and saw the sky darkening, the once clear blue now filled with strange shapes. His heart skipped a beat. He knew what it meant. "They've found us," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. "The warships, they're coming." Alex's expression didn't change. He had been expecting this day, even if he hadn't been ready for it. His past, no matter how far he had tried to escape it, was never truly gone. It had followed him, here across the stars, and now it had caught up to him. The warships in the sky were massive, each one more terrifying than the last. They were part of a galactic empire that had once sought to conquer Earth. They had failed, of course, but that defeat had only fueled their hatred. They had not forgotten the humans who had beaten them, and now they had come to claim what they believed was rightfully theirs. The colony, hidden on a distant planet, was the last place they expected to find humans, and it was the first place they intended to destroy. Alex stood tall, his mind already working through the possibilities. He had no illusions about the enemy. They were powerful, and they would stop at nothing to destroy this world. But he wasn't afraid. He had faced worse. He had survived the toughest battles humanity had ever seen. And he would fight again if that's what it took to protect the people he cared about. Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with fear. "What are we going to do?" she asked, her voice shaky. Alex turned to face her, his eyes steady. "We're going to fight," he said, his voice calm and firm. He reached down to a shelf and grabbed an old sword, one that had been left behind when Earth had fallen. It was rusty, its once sharp edge dulled by time, but it was still a weapon, and in his hands it would do more than enough. Lyra's eyes widened as she watched him. "You can't be serious," she said, stepping back. That's just an old relic. It's useless." Alex smirked. You'd be surprised, he said, holding the sword up to the light. The blade caught the sun's rays, reflecting it back in a brilliant flash. Time to sharpen my rusty sword. Lyra stared at him, her heart pounding. She had known Alex was a warrior, but she had never seen him in action. She had never seen the strength and determination that lay beneath the surface of the man who had come to love her. He was different now, a man of peace. But in this moment, she realized that the warrior he had once been was still very much alive. The warships will be here soon, Lyra said, her voice trembling again. We don't have much time. Alex nodded. He turned toward the door, his eyes scanning the horizon. The sky was filled with warships, each one a monstrous machine of destruction. But Alex wasn't afraid. He had faced the might of the universe before, and he would do it again. He would fight for the colony, for Lyra, and for the future of their world. Lyra followed him out of the house, her heart racing. What can we do? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We're just a small colony. We don't have the resources to fight them. Alex stopped and looked at her, his expression serious. You're wrong, he said. We don't need to defeat them all. We just need to hold our ground long enough to make them realize that we're not easy prey. Lyra was silent for a moment, processing his words. She had never seen Alex so focused, so determined. It was as if the weight of the past had fallen on his shoulders once more, and he was ready to bear it. They won't take this world without a fight, Alex continued. I promise you that. As the warships descended from the sky, Alex knew that the battle was about to begin. The fate of the colony, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on the shoulders of one man who had once been a warrior but had become something more.
Now he would prove that humanity's strength was not just in its weapons, but in its will to survive. The warships loomed closer, their massive shadows darkening the ground below. The colony's defenses had been designed for protection, not
for all-out warfare. But Alex wasn't concerned about the odds. He had faced overwhelming forces before and emerged victorious. And this time, he would do it again. Lyra stood beside him, her fear slowly turning into something else. She didn't know if they would win this fight, but one thing was certain. She had never been more proud of the man standing next to her. This was the man who had come to protect them all, even when his own heart had been torn by the weight of his past. Alex looked at her one last time before turning toward the battlefield. Stay safe, he said, his voice low, but steady. I'll be back. And with that, the warrior stepped forward into the gathering storm, ready to face whatever came next. The sky was filled with darkness as the warships descended. Their massive shadows blocked out the sun, casting an eerie gloom over the colony. The sound of engines roaring through the atmosphere shook the ground beneath Alex's feet, vibrating the air like a storm. He stood on the edge of the colony, looking up at the ships as they slowly approached. The threat was real, and it was terrifying. Alex's grip tightened on the old sword he had retrieved from the archives. The blade was not as sharp as it once was, but in his hands it would still do damage. The sword was a symbol of everything he had left behind, a symbol of his past life as a warrior, but now he would use it once more, not for himself, but for the people he had come to love. His mind raced as he scanned the horizon, trying to figure out a way to defend the colony. Beside him, Lyra stood, her face pale with fear. Her eyes darted from the sky to Alex, unsure of what to do. She had never been a warrior. She had never fought in a battle. But she had been raised to protect her people, and now she was determined to stand beside Alex and do whatever she could. They'll reach us soon, Lyra said quietly, her voice trembling. What are we going to do? Alex didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned and surveyed the colony, his eyes narrowing as he assessed their defenses. The colony had never been built to withstand an attack of this scale. It was a peaceful place, a place of healing and growth. But now it had become the target of an empire that had never forgiven humanity's resistance. We'll do the best we can, Alex said, his voice calm but filled with a steely determination. We don't need to beat them all. We just need to slow them down long enough for everyone to escape. The underground tunnels are our only hope. Lyra nodded, understanding what he meant. The tunnels that ran beneath the colony were old, forgotten and unused by most of the people. But they had once been a part of the colony's emergency plan, a way for the residents to escape in case of a natural disaster. Now, they were the colony's last hope. Alex turned back toward the center of the settlement, where the leaders of the colony had gathered. He knew the battle was coming and he wanted to make sure the people were ready. The last thing they needed was panic. The people needed direction, and Alex would give it to them. As he walked toward the colony's meeting hall, Lyra followed him closely. She had never been one for leadership, but she could see the determination in Alex's eyes, and she knew that if anyone could protect them, it would. The battle raged on around Alex as he fought to hold the enemy back. The sound of blaster fire and explosions filled the air, making it difficult to hear anything over the chaos. The colony was under attack, and there was no time to waste. Alex knew that they couldn't keep this up for much longer. They had to find a way to turn the tide. The first wave of enemy soldiers had been dealt with, but there were still more fighters in the sky, more soldiers coming down to the planet's surface. Alex could feel the weight of their numbers, the overwhelming strength of the force that was trying to crush them. But he wasn't about to give up. Not now. Not after everything he had fought for. As he crouched behind a building, catching his breath for just a moment, Alex's thoughts turned to the relic, the old weapon that had been hidden beneath the colony for so long. He hadn't told anyone about it, not yet. But he knew that it was their only hope. The weapon had been left behind by humanity's ancestors, a tool of unimaginable power that could turn the tide of any battle. Alex had found it years ago, hidden in the deep vaults beneath the colony. But he had never used it. Not until now. He stood up, scanning the battlefield. The enemy soldiers were advancing, their weapons ready, their movements coordinated. They were closing in on the heart of the colony. Alex knew that if they didn't act quickly, it would all be over. But he also knew that there was something in the vaults below that could help them. Alex turned to Lyra, who was still at the command center, watching the battle unfold on the monitors. Her face was pale with fear, but her eyes were filled with determination. She had been waiting for him to make his move, and now the time had come. "Lyra," Alex said, his voice firm, "I need you to trust me." Lyra looked up, her eyes locking onto his. She had never seen him like this before, so focused, so sure of himself. She knew he had a plan, even if she didn't understand it yet. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her. "I need you to get everyone to the tunnels," Alex replied. "I'm going down, to the vaults. There's a weapon down there, one that can help us fight back. It's our last chance." Lyra hesitated, her mind racing. She didn't want to leave him alone, but she knew that they didn't have a choice. "Be careful," she whispered. "Don't do anything reckless." Alex gave her a reassuring smile, though it was tinged with the weight of the task ahead. "I'll be back," he promised. Then, without another word, he turned and made his way toward the entrance of the colony's underground tunnels. The path to the vaults was a familiar one to Alex, though he hadn't walked it in years. The tunnels beneath the colony were old, built long before the settlement had even been established. They were originally designed as a refuge in case of natural disasters, a place where the people could go for shelter. But Alex knew that they also held something much more valuable, something that could help them survive this invasion. As he descended deeper into the tunnels, Alex's mind wandered back to the first time he had discovered the weapon. It had been years ago, shortly after the war had ended. He had been exploring the ruins of an old facility, looking for anything that could help him start a new life. That was when he had found it, a hidden chamber buried deep within the earth containing a relic of humanity's past. The weapon was a massive thing, unlike anything Alex had ever seen before. It was a piece of technology that had been lost during the war, a weapon that had been too powerful to be used in the final battles. The scientists who had created it had hidden it away, hoping that it would never be needed. But now, it was their only hope. Alex had never fully understood how the weapon worked. It was unlike anything he had ever studied, but he had spent years learning about it, testing it, trying to unlock its secrets. And now, he knew what he had to do. As he reached the vaults, Alex quickly found the entrance. The door was heavy, made of metal so thick it felt like it could withstand a direct hit from a warship, but Alex had no time to waste. He placed his hand on the control panel, and with a soft hum, the door slid open. Inside, the weapon lay waiting. It was massive, its form sleek and angular, like a creature from another world. The surface of the weapon was made of a strange, shiny material, one that seemed to shift and shimmer as Alex moved closer. It was clear that the weapon was not of human design. It was something far beyond anything he could comprehend. Alex stood there for a moment, his hand resting on the weapon's cold surface. He felt a surge of energy, as if the weapon itself was alive, responding to his touch. It was powerful, too powerful, but in this moment Alex knew that it was their only chance. He reached for the control panel beside the weapon, his fingers moving quickly over the buttons. The weapon hummed to life, its power surging as the systems activated. Alex felt a pulse of energy ripple through the air, the weapon charging itself for battle. Just as the weapon came online, Alex heard the sound of footsteps behind him. He turned, his hand instinctively going to his blaster. But it was Lyra standing at the entrance to the vault, her face a mix of concern and determination. "Alex, we're ready," she said. "The tunnels are secure. Everyone is underground." Alex nodded, his eyes never leaving the weapon. "Good. I need you to stay down there with the civilians, keep them safe." Lyra didn't argue. She understood that Alex had a plan and she trusted him. "What are you going to do with this?" she asked, motioning to the weapon. Alex smiled grimly. "I'm going to use it to end this, once and for all." Lyra nodded and turned to leave, but Alex stopped her for a moment. "Thank you," he said, his voice low. Lyra smiled back at him, her eyes filled with warmth and love. "You're the only one who can do this. I believe in you." With a final look at her, Alex turned back to the weapon. The time had come. He would make his stand here in the heart of the colony, with this forgotten weapon as his only ally. He took a deep breath, steadied his aim, and prepared to unleash the weapon's full power. Outside, the enemy warships continued to circle above, their massive forms blotting out the sky. The first wave of soldiers had already landed, but there was more to come. Alex could feel the weight of the battle ahead, but he wasn't afraid. He had fought battles before, and he had always come out on top. This time would be no different. The weapon hummed with power, its systems primed and ready. Alex had no idea how it would work, but he knew one thing for sure. It would change everything. He activated the weapon's targeting system, locking onto the enemy warships above. A beam of energy surged from the weapon, cutting through the air like a bolt of lightning. It struck the first warship, tearing through its hull with ease. The ship exploded in a massive fireball, its pieces scattering across the sky. Alex didn't stop. He fired again, this time targeting a group of enemy soldiers on the ground. The weapon unleashed a wave of energy, sending them flying in every direction. The power of the blast was overwhelming, and Alex felt the ground shake beneath him as the weapon discharged again and again. The enemy was no longer just a threat. They were being defeated. And Alex had just taken the first step toward winning this battle. The colony's surface had become a battleground. Once peaceful streets now echoed with the sound of explosions, the shouts of soldiers, and the blaring noise of enemy warships. Alex had made his stand, and the battle was far from over. His weapon, the ancient relic from humanity's past, was proving to be more powerful than anything they had expected. But the enemy was relentless, and they were not giving up easily. Alex stood in the heart of the colony, his eyes scanning the chaos around him. The weapon had done its job, taking out several of the warships and enemy fighters, but more were coming, and the colony's defenses were stretched thin. The first wave of enemy soldiers had been pushed back, but there was no way to hold them off forever. The enemy had reinforcements on the way, and they wouldn't stop until the colony was wiped out. The air was thick with smoke and dust, and the ground beneath Alex's feet shook as another enemy warship dropped out of the sky. It landed with a deafening crash, sending tremors through the earth. Alex's heart raced as he adjusted his grip on the weapon. He could feel the weight of the battle pressing down on him, but he refused to give in. This colony, this world, meant everything to him now. He would not let it fall. Lyra's face appeared in his mind, her worried eyes watching from the safety of the underground tunnels. She trusted him, and he could feel the weight of her trust in every action he took. He had to protect her, the people of the colony, and the future they had all built together. If he failed, it wouldn't just be the colony that would fall, it would be everything. He turned back toward the battlefield. The enemy soldiers were closing in again, and the warships were starting to regroup. Their strategy was becoming clearer. They intended to crush the colony from the air, but they were also making a push on the ground. Alex could see the soldiers advancing, their dark armor glinting in the harsh light of the battle. Without hesitation, Alex moved toward the front lane. He knew he couldn't hold them off alone for long, but he would fight with everything he had. He had already seen the power of the weapon in his hands, and now it was time to use it again. He could feel the energy surging through him, his muscles tight with the anticipation of the fight. As Alex made his way through the wreckage of the battlefield, he spotted a group of enemy soldiers approaching. The sky above was filled with smoke, a mixture of fire and dust that blotted out the sun. The ground beneath Alex's feet was scorched, the ruins of the colony a stark reminder of the battle they had just fought. Yet, despite the chaos and destruction, there was a sense of hope. The enemy had retreated, their forces broken and scattered. The warships that had once dominated the sky were now leaving, their massive forms disappearing into the distance. For now, the colony had survived. Alex stood in the middle of the battlefield, his body covered in dirt and sweat, but his eyes remained focused. He had fought hard, and so had the others. Together they had managed to hold off the invasion, but the cost had been high. The colony was damaged, and many lives had been lost. Still, Alex knew that they had won a crucial victory. It was a victory that would give them the chance to rebuild, to rise from the ashes of war. Lyra was among those who had helped lead the civilians to safety. When the battle had ended, she emerged from the tunnels, her face filled with both relief and sorrow. She had seen the destruction, but she had also seen the strength of the people who had fought to protect their home. She approached Alex, her eyes searching his face for any sign of weariness. "Is it over?" she asked quietly, her voice filled with hope. "For now," Alex replied, his tone steady. "We've won, but we still have a lot of work to do." Lyra nodded, her gaze sweeping over the battlefield. The wreckage of the warships and enemy soldiers littered the ground, but amidst the devastation, there were signs of life. The people of the colony were emerging from the tunnels, tending to the wounded and gathering what they could salvage from the wreckage. Alex could see the determination in their eyes. They were a resilient people, and despite everything, they would rebuild. Lyra placed a hand on Alex's arm, her touch gentle but firm. "You've done it," she said. "You've saved us." Alex looked down at her, his eyes softening. "We did it," he corrected. "Together, we did it." Lyra smiled, a small but genuine smile, and for a moment they stood there in silence, watching as the people of the colony began to rebuild. The sky was clearing, and the air was cooler now. It felt like the calm after the storm. Alex knew that. This battle was just the beginning. The war had not ended with the retreat of the enemy forces. It had only just begun. The galaxy was vast, and there would always be more threats. But for now, the colony had a chance to heal, and that was something worth fighting for. Over the next few days, the people of the colony worked tirelessly to repair the damage caused by the invasion. Alex and Lyra were at the forefront of the efforts, helping to organize the rebuilding process and ensuring that everyone had what they needed. They had no illusions about the challenges ahead, but they were determined to make their home strong once more. The weapon Alex had discovered in the vaults was now in the hands of the colony's engineers, who were working to understand its full potential. Alex had used it to turn the tide of the battle, but there was so much more to learn about its power. They knew it was a piece of humanity's lost history, and it could be the key to protecting their future. As the days passed, Alex found himself reflecting on the battle, on the choices he had made, and on the people he had fought for. Lyra had become more than just a partner to him. She was his strength, his reason for fighting. The bond between them had grown deeper, forged in the heat of battle and tempered by their shared experiences. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Alex and Lyra stood together on a small hill overlooking the colony. The rebuilding was well underway, and there was a sense of optimism in the air. The people of the colony were no longer afraid. They had faced their darkest hour and had emerged stronger for it. "I never thought I'd see a day like this," Lyra said softly, her voice filled with awe. "A day when we would actually fight back, when we would stand up to the invaders and win." Alex turned to her, his gaze intense. "You're stronger than you realize," he said, his voice low, but full of conviction. "The people here are strong, and together we can face anything." Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light of the setting sun. "I never believed that we could survive something like this, but now I know that we can. We'll rebuild, Alex. We'll rebuild stronger than before." Alex nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to believe in a future. He had spent so many years fighting, so many years running from the past, but now in this place with these people, he could finally see the possibility of a new beginning. The next morning, the colony's leaders gathered to discuss the future. The meeting was held in the central hall, a place that had once been a symbol of peace and prosperity, but now it was a symbol of their survival. The room was filled with people, old and young, injured and healthy, but all determined to rebuild. Alex and Lyra sat at the front of the room, their presence a reminder of the strength and courage that had seen them through the battle. The council members took their seats, and the conversation quickly turned to the future. "We've lost a lot," Jorlin, the colony's leader, began. "But we've also gained something. We've gained the knowledge that we can survive, that we can fight back. We've gained the strength to rebuild." The room fell silent as the gravity of Jorlin's words sank in. The people of the colony had fought and won, but the cost had been high. There was no denying the losses they had suffered, but there was also no denying the resilience that had brought them this far. "We must be prepared for what comes next," Alex said, his voice steady. "The enemy may have retreated, but they won't stop. We need to be ready for the next battle, whatever it may be." Lyra nodded in agreement. "We've seen what they're capable of. We can't afford to be caught off guard again." The council members exchanged looks, and then one by one they nodded in agreement. The decision was made. The colony would rebuild, but they would also prepare for the future. They would not let their victory be in vain. Over the next few weeks, the colony's efforts to rebuild continued. New homes were constructed, the fields were replanted, and the defenses were strengthened. The weapon Alex had discovered was studied in greater detail, and the engineers worked tirelessly to understand how it could be used to protect the colony. They knew that they couldn't rely on it forever, but for now, it was their greatest advantage. Alex and Lyra spent their days helping with the reconstruction, but they also took time to reflect on the battle they had fought. They knew that the war was not over, but they also knew that they had proven something important. They had proven that humanity could survive, that they could stand against the greatest threats the galaxy could throw at them. As the days turned into weeks and the colony slowly began to heal, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They had done it. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. And now, they had the chance to build a future where they could live in peace, a future where the lessons of the past would guide them toward a brighter tomorrow. Lyra stood beside him, her hand resting in his. Together they looked out over the colony, knowing that the battle was far from over, but that they would face whatever came next, together. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting its soft golden light across the colony. The air was crisp, and the smell of fresh earth filled the atmosphere. The battle was over. The warships had gone, and the enemy soldiers who had once invaded their peaceful world had been driven away. The ruins of the battlefield were still visible, but the people of the colony were working together to rebuild. The damage was great, but their spirits were stronger. Alex stood on a small hill overlooking the colony. The sight of the people working together filled him with pride. They had survived, and now they were determined to thrive. The scars of the battle would take time to heal, but the hope that had been born from their victory was palpable. Lyra joined him on the hill, her presence a quiet comfort. She had become more than just a partner to him. She had become his strength. She had stood beside him through the darkest of times, and now she was there to share in the light of the new dawn. "This place is changing," Lyra said, her voice soft but full of hope. She looked out at the colony, her eyes scanning the faces of the people who were working, rebuilding their homes, their lives. "It feels like a new beginning." Alex nodded. "It is. This is just the start. We've been given a chance to rebuild, but we have to be ready for whatever comes next." Lyra's gaze turned toward him, her expression thoughtful. "You've been through so much, Alex. You fought battles no one should ever have to fight. I've seen the pain in your eyes, but I've also seen the strength. I've seen you lead us through this, and now I see the future. A future where we are no longer just surviving but thriving." Alex felt a rush of emotions at her words. For so long he had only known war, pain, and the constant need to fight. He had been running from his past, from the mistakes he had made, from the bloodshed that had marked every chapter of his life. But now, here, on this peaceful planet, he had found something worth fighting for. He had found hope. "I never imagined it would be like this," Alex said quietly, his voice tinged with emotion. "I thought I was done fighting. I thought I had left all of it behind. But now I realize that this is what I was meant to fight for. To protect this. To